Good morning. I'm Jerry Sagona, Vice President of Business Development with the Rockford Area Economic Development Council. Today we present a webinar on database mining for fast-track business development with IMEC, Illinois Manufacturing Excellence Center. The Rockford Area Economic Development Council is hosting these webinars as a service to our community to provide meaningful information to help businesses reopen and prosper during this pandemic. Please visit our website at www.rockfordil.com for other business resources. There'll be 2 more webinars scheduled during the month of August. On August 6th, IMEC will be back with a presentation on best practices for video conferencing. And then on August 20th, the ED Talk series continues with Rockford University on strategic alignment and performance, identifying common reasons as to why organizations fail to achieve their desired results and why employees fail to achieve performance metrics. Again, please visit our website for the dates and registration details. Before we begin, I'd like to give special recognition to today's webinar coordinator, Anna Garrison, Manager of Projects and Events with Rockford Area Economic Development Council. I mention this because there is a tremendous amount of work required behind the scenes to coordinate a webinar. Thanks, Anna. So let's get the ball rolling. Today's webinar is scheduled for approximately 1 hour, with the last 15 to 20 minutes reserved for questions and answers. Please feel welcome to submit questions throughout the presentation through the question chat function feature on your screen. This morning, I'd like to welcome Dean Harms. Dean is the Regional Manager for IMEC in the Rockford region. During his career in the industrial OEM and MRO markets, Dean has worked with customers through direct and distribution sales channels in industries ranging from high-volume lighting, electronics, and industrial controls to low-volume heavy equipment, marine, power generation, and transportation. His experience covers business development and marketing, along with an operational focus on manufacturing, engineering, production, and inventory control. I would now like to turn over the presentation to Dean.
Good morning, everyone. I want to, first of all, stop and thank everyone for joining today. I also like to acknowledge RADEC, the Rockford Area Economic Development Council, and also the Transform Rockford Group, as we're all working together here in the Rockford region to help businesses through this thing that we've affectionately come to know as COVID-19. My goal today is to provide the best information I can, along with some tools to help companies throughout the region. Today, the presentation is geared towards all organizations. It's for anyone with a database and a need for new revenue. Well, let me just pause for a moment to define revenue. It's been said that top-line revenue is defined as cash, something we all appreciate. But top-line growth is defined as new cash, something we're all looking for. So the purpose today is to provide information that will help you with the new cash. So let's get started. Next slide, please. And is the presentation on?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. I don't see it on my side. Am I missing something?
It might be what you have pulled up.
Okay, well, that's fine. We'll work through it. Just a little technical glitch. On to plan B. So let's start with some general information and consider a few things. At any given time, 4% of the market is actively buying, 56% are not, 40% are poised to begin. As you work through your database, you are looking for the 4% and the 40% and to reconnect and build relationship with the other 56% so they know you. They know you when they fall into that 4% or that 40% category. But you also have to consider the conversion rates. Conversion rates can average 10 to 15%. So it could take 100 emails to connect with just 10 to 15 people. And then 10 to 15% will convert to opportunities, and another 10 to 15% can convert to an order. So it can take a lot of work just to get one order. But when you're mining your database of former customers, the conversion rate can be better. And with a focus on relationship building, they improve even more. Next slide, please. So let's start with a few points about email. This is a direct form of communication and continues to be the #1 means of business-to-business communication. Business people will send and receive an average of 120 emails a day. Business people will also spend an average of 3 hours a day processing email. And with all this activity, it's an understanding that you have to earn the right to be in someone's mailbox. Otherwise, we get the dreaded 6-letter action delete. Next slide, please. So it starts with a few points asking, why don't people respond to voicemail? We've all experienced it. Average number of voice messages per day, 20. 80% of calls go to voicemail, and 90% of first-time voicemails are not listened to and are deleted. Yet this is also a direct form of communication and has higher impact as it allows for the verbal connection or the tone of voice. So it really must have a place. Next slide. So how does this all work? If emails and phone calls are so widely used, how does this all work together with people and earn new business? Well, it starts with realizing that people are very busy. And when they don't know you, it's tough to connect. I think we all kind of understand that. It's also an understanding that people work with those they know, like, and trust. First-time callers, you don't have any of that. So we have to use a system that creates a reason for people to want to know who you are, have a reason to get to like you, and have a reason to trust you. Next slide, please. This system uses a combination of emails and phone calls that builds engagement to open doors and start a conversation that leads to opportunities, otherwise known as quotes. What does it look like? Starts out with the first step. You send an email, but you have relevant scripted content and format. Next step, you follow up in 1 to 2 days with a phone call. Now, that's going to create two things. You're either going to leave a voice message or you might actually have a conversation with somebody. If you leave a voice message, you just simply follow up a week later with a second email, and then you wait 3 to 4 weeks and repeat. Sounds pretty simple. We'll talk more about this and what it looks like. Next slide, please. So let's start with a little bit of discussion around email. For those of us been around a little while, if you remember the days when email first became available back in the early to mid 90s, we thought it was the coolest thing, and we would impress the world with our language skills and write a whole chapter, if not a book, in every email we sent. Now, some 30 years later, we communicate in just a few words or sentences. It's a wonder how all that happened. Next slide. Well, we all live in a media-rich environment. There's nearly 3 billion email users worldwide, sending billions of email every day. It's been said that we're navigating in a sea of information while drowning in data. Yet, email is the #1 means of business-to-business communication. How do we get our message out? How do we earn the right to be in someone's inbox? Next slide, please. We're going to get short and sweet. The key to an effective system is to establish a connection through a systematic method, keeping in mind a few issues. You have 10 to 15 seconds to get and keep someone's attention. Yeah, it's seconds, not minutes. That only gives you about 30 to 50 words to capture a reader's interest and up to 90 more words to share content. That's 140 characters. What does that look like? I think it's called Twitter length, otherwise about 1 sentence. Now think about the emails that you receive that are Twitter length. You can read them, you can process them. Think about those that are much longer than that. What do you do with them? Next slide, please. Keeping messages short ensures that your message will appear in the person's view box. Now think about your inbox and your view box. What emails do you read? And others that are so long that you have to scroll and scroll and scroll. And what do, especially when you don't know the sender? You delete. Also consider that the mind connects in series of 3s and 5s and 7s. So you use a combination of these numbers for highest impact. For example, use 3 to 5 words per sentence, 3 to 5 sentences. The shorter, the better. And in doing so, it keeps the message in the view box for that receiver. Next slide, please. So when you work the system, here comes some of the work. Maintain a call log. Do your record keeping. This is important. It can be Outlook. It could be an Excel spreadsheet. It could be your company's ERP system. But you need to track your work. You need the dates that you sent your emails, the dates that you phoned, the messages that you left. Is it a voicemail, an email? Dates that you followed up. It's hard to know where you are going if you've forgotten where you've been. Next slide, please. Step 1, send the introductory email. Purpose is to introduce yourself and make a connection. Give your contact a reason to give you 10 to 15 seconds. And you do that by developing and using pre-written scripts. I think you're starting to hear that word script come up over and over again, and that's the key. Being prepared, drafting out the scripts. Next slide, please. And here's where your database really comes into play. When you communicate with former customers, do your homework, dig into your database. What did they buy? When did they buy it? What were the part numbers? Was there tooling? Did you have inventory? Is there raw material? Is there something unique about the part or service that you can still produce or provide? Have you developed an improvement that produces better quality, maybe better delivery or better cost? And search your customer's website. Search LinkedIn, Facebook. Look for relevant content. It's all about doing your homework. It's all about being prepared. And your database is a vast amount of information that can help you pull all that together so that when you reach out to these clients, you've got a story to share. Next slide, please. But now you have to consider who's the key contact. Your data might not be quite so accurate. Who is the key contact to the person that bought the last time? Are they still there? A lot of them may not be. You may need to source to find out who the new key contact is. Use a scripted response to ask for the new decision maker. LinkedIn is also a great source. Remember on LinkedIn that people will know when you viewed their profile. So unless you buy a premium service, you can hide your ID. Otherwise, they know you've hit. And if you do it 2, 3, 4, 5 times, it makes people wonder just a little bit. But LinkedIn does offer a lot of information. And if you find that they work somewhere else and do similar work or related work, you can use this system to call them at their new employer and start the process. Ask for referrals. So here's a great scripted statement talking to the receptionist or a person. We used to do business with your company and we worked with John Smith. I understand he's no longer there. Can you tell me who does the buying? Pretty simple, straightforward, but it comes from developing your scripts to support your conversation. Next slide. So now you need to send that email. It needs to be pre-written and scripted. And what should that email look like? You have to remember, you need to be short, to the point, provide content, and make a request to take action. And think about your reader. So it can go a little bit like this. Email number 1. Hi, I'm Dean Harms with IMEC, located here in Rockford. Glad to make your acquaintance. Back in 2012, we supplied an ABC part for your part number XYZ. But since then, we've seen much change. I wanted to reconnect asking about your interest. Not only can we produce the part, but we have material, tooling, etc. Would you be interested in a competitive quote? Thanks for your time, and I appreciate your reply. And that's it. Short, sweet, but think about it. The part number makes the connection. That's real powerful. You share relevant content with a call for action. And make sure your signature block has your website, because they might just check you out. Next slide, please. But here's the twist. The purpose of the email was not to sell. It was to land the first touch, to get your name in front of the buyer. And it's the lead to the phone call. Remember the 4% of the industry that is buying and the 40% that are poised to buy? That's your target. Those are the folks that you're looking for. But you remember that most first-time emails get deleted. Seems like there's not much hope of that first email getting anything but deleted, except you started by saying your name and your company. You got a touch. Next slide, please. So let's talk about the phone. Why is it so hard to reach people on the phone? If email is the #1 form of communication, it would seem that the phone is number 2. After all, it sits on the desk right next to the computer. Main thing, the phone takes a lot more time. When you receive an email, you can read it, delete it, or respond in 30 seconds or less, sometimes 10 seconds or less. But when you receive a phone call, that call can turn into 5 minutes or longer. And in our world, that's an eternity. And we do protect our time. But 2 thoughts. We live in the era of 2020 and we're dealing with a pandemic called COVID. Lots and lots of people have been working from home. They have a greater sense of isolation. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of weird. And because of that, there's some information out now that indicates that people are more interested in talking to other people. We are social creatures after all. We like to be connected. And if that's true, now could be a perfect time to use direct email and direct phone call to reach far more people and improve that conversion rate. And in the process, keeping in mind, you're continuing to give people a reason to give you time. Next slide, please. So you've been off to a meeting, you've been off doing something else within your business. There are other things you have to do in your day-to-day work, and you come back to the blinking red light. Or if you've got a counter on your phone, maybe a number 36. Who likes checking voice messages? It's a task just to check voice messages, but it has to be done. A person gets an average of 20 voice messages a day, and checking voice messages can take forever, especially with long-winded messages. But they have to be checked, and this is a key to understand. They have to be checked to glean out those important messages. Could be a customer that called, could be a supplier, could be your boss, business associate, could be a friend. You don't want to miss any of those messages, and you got to go through all of them to get to them. Next slide, please. Step number 2, got to make the call. And this is when the fun begins, because when you make the phone call, you're going to get one of 2 things. You're either going to get voicemail, or you might actually reach a person. But with the facts we touched on earlier, there's a real good chance you'll get voicemail, but you need to be prepared for both. Next slide. So when you make the phone call and when you have to leave a message, it is as important to script your voice message as much as your email. It will keep you focused and prevent you from drifting off topic. It also helps to prevent the stuttering and the stammering, which we all fall prey to. Knowing that once the email is sent, also, you need to do the follow-up call within 1 to 2 days. Remember, you're most likely going to get voicemail, even though you might just get the buyer. It'll go something like this. So now imagine you're checking your email and you're checking your voicemail and you get something that sounds like this. Hi, Bob. This is Dean Harms with IMEC. Earlier this week, I connected with you via email, and I hope you had a chance to review that information. If you're looking for a solution or improvement for the parts or service I mentioned, please feel free to contact me. I appreciate you keeping our company in mind. Have a great day. And that's it. Short and sweet. But think about how it sounded. It was scripted in a way to sound professional. Next slide. So when that voice message gets checked, it usually goes something like this. Hi, Bob. This is Dean Harms with IMEC. Delete, done, gone. Never really get very far into it. Client does not know me, has no connection, has no real interest, has 55 other things to do, got a pile of paperwork, it's pushing up to lunchtime. Didn't get much out, it got deleted. However, you now have made touch number 2. Hi, this is Dean Harms with IMEC, your name and your company name. Because it really wasn't about connecting, but getting your name in front of the buyer. You now have sent an email with your name and company, and you left a voice message with your name and company. Next slide. But wait, hold on. The buyer actually answers the phone. What do I do now? Use your script. Goes a little bit like this. Hi, Bob, this is Dean Harms with IMEC. Thanks for your time today. Earlier this week, I connected with you via email. Do you recall that email and the parts that I mentioned? If they say yes, since we have made the part and have tooling, etc., fill in the blank, would you be interested in an updated quote? If they say no, do you have any other parts where you're looking for competitive pricing? Or is there any other area where I can help you? May open up new opportunities. If not, just a quick finish. I realize you're busy and appreciate your time, so I'd like to forward a link on our services. Once you reviewed that information, if I can be of further assistance, please give me a call. Thanks so much. Have a great day. It's all about the script. It's all about following that script. Having a yes, no, it works. Next slide, please. But if you don't connect, you left an email, you left a voice message, you wait 1 week and send a second email. And now we're getting into the continuity and building on the touches. Again, short, sweet, to the point. It goes something a little bit like this. Hi, this is Dean Harms with IMEC. Continuity there, name, company. Thanks for your time today. While I had reached out to you earlier via email and a phone message, I do realize your time is valuable. If I can be of any assistance, feel free to connect. Thanks for your time. That's it. But it's important that you forward your earlier email because it has the original information so you don't have to repeat. And now you've made touch number 3. Next slide, please. So you've run through the system. You've made 3 touches. Now you wait 3 to 4 weeks and you repeat. You can use the same system in the same format. Most people won't remember any of it. You can tweak it up a little bit if you want. You can refine your scripts, but continue to do so. Use those scripts, both your email scripts and your voice message scripts and your direct contact scripts. And remember the earlier note about record keeping? This is where you'll need it. It helps to remember where you've been to help you move forward. Next slide, please. So what's the impact here? It's all about touches. You set up the system and use it so they see your name, they hear your name, they see your name again, they see your name again. Because one day you will get the buyer, you will make that connection, but it's no longer a cold call. It's what I like to call a no call. They now know your name. They remember you. Might not remember why you were calling, but what it'll do is give you that 10 to 15 seconds to go into your pre-scripted conversation to connect with that particular person. And through that process, You're building likability, and you're earning the right to be in their inbox. And when you connect, you have that extra credibility that keeps the door open. Next slide, please. To summarize, be prepared. It's a key to success. You have to set up your system and do your homework. Write and use your scripts. Do your record keeping. Remember, the touches build your name recognition. And remember, it's about helping people. There are people that need your services. They need your products. They need your help. But they're going to do business with people they know, like, and trust. And the system helps you to get people to get to know who you are. They get to like you because of the professional system that you went through. And because of that professionalism, it demonstrates your professionalism and your competence. And people start to gravitate to that message. Execute the system and repeat. Next slide, please. And so what's the impact? You're going to make a pass through your database. Databases can have hundreds of contacts and thousands of contacts. It can be a lot of work. But if you make one pass through your database with a 10 to 15% conversion rate, yeah, you can get business. You're going to find 4%. You're going to find some 40% that are close to being the 4%. Go through that database and then take pass number 2. Some people you connect with are going to see it. They're even actually going to stop and go, yeah, I remember that company. And they're going to go, why haven't we done business with them in a while? But they're real busy to get sidetracked and go on. They're going to wait and see if you call back. On the second pass, you create more connections. You can get new business. And then you make a third pass because you convert more because you're now connecting with the 40% that are becoming the 4%, but you're also connecting with the 56%. You're building relationships with those people. And oftentimes you'll hear something like, oh yeah, I forgot all about you guys. Hey, I don't need anything today, but would you reach out to me again in a month or so? Again, record keeping. Post a date out there in September and don't forget to make that date. As they say, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. Even though there are days when you feel like you're sprinting the marathon. Next slide. Thanks again, folks. Short, sweet. We're here to help. We can turn it over. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to help out any way I can.
Thanks, Dean. A couple of questions we have here are, you mentioned during the phone call stuff that an email will be sent with a link. What does the link go to and how does that work?
When you send the email, you want to share some relevant content. So you want to send a link about your business, a link to your website, a link to a product data sheet. And most people like links. You can also send a PDF document, but just send some relevant content that they click on to go remember who are these folks. Buyers in that 4% category are looking. Buyers that are in that 40% are going to start looking and they'll check you out. So that's why that link is important with some relevant content.
Dean, question came in is, can you please restate the email statistics from earlier in the presentation? I believe, looking back here, I know you had mentioned the number of people, the 4%.
Sure. Throw a couple of bits of data out here. Again, 4% of the market is actively buying, 56% are not, 40% are poised to buy. Industry conversion rate runs 10 to 15% from conversion to conversion. So apply the numbers and it'll give you an idea. 3 billion emails a day, every day. Now do the math there, multiply that by, I don't know, 10 emails per person. You can get an idea of the magnitude of emails that we transmit every day. It's just phenomenal. People get 120 emails a day, spend 3 hours a day doing that. It's a lot of time. But when you understand those numbers, you know, things like 20 voice messages, and then a lot of them go to voicemail, but understanding why they go to voicemail, and you start to understand how you can present yourself in a way, and that's where this system was developed to touch on the idea of making that touch and building your name recognition. Hi, I'm Dean Harms with IMEC. Hi, I'm Sue Smith with ABC Company. And that starts to build that continuity. Hope that answers the question.
I think you did a good job. At what point do you stop following up with a company if they aren't responding?
That's a really good question, because in some cases, I've always taken the approach, I'm going to keep calling until somebody picks up the phone and answers or tells me to go away and stop calling. Usually what happens is when you make a first pass through, you're going to get some new opportunities, and that's going to start to consume some resources. You make a second pass through, you still want to touch on some of these folks, and you might skip them. You might skip a pass. If you're going to reach out every 3 to 4 weeks, maybe you schedule it every 6 to 8 weeks or 10 to 12 weeks. And that's where your tracking sheet comes back into play, so that you've got to know, I'm going to skip them this month. You put an X in the box and you go up, you catch them the next time around. So it's really a judgment call, but I'll give you something else to consider. Did the parts that you used to supply for them in the past, were they really, really good parts for your company to make? Was it a really, really good service? Is it a profitable service for you? Is it a business that you'd really, really like to get back again? If that's the case, don't ever give up. Keep after it, okay? If you're uncertain, or if it's business that doesn't necessarily fit well into your operating models, where it stretches and taxes your resources, you might stretch that one out a little bit. So keep those things in mind as far as what's good for your business, what fits in real well, what has the potential to be more profitable, what fits into your wheelhouse the best. Those might be the ones you just want to continue to go the distance with.
Dean, one thing we use at RADAC is constant contact. And what that brings with it is that if you're sending emails out through that platform, you're able to see the response from people, whether it's moved to trash, whether they've read it, whether they clicked a link through it and everything. And I guess that kind of goes into, can you speak a little bit about some of the technology that can help the listeners here to help them through some of the process of connecting with customers?
When you tie in that type of technology, there's a couple things that help you out. First of all, this is just a direct marketing business development tool built around phone calls and emails. Some people might call it the old-fashioned way, and probably so in our modern era of technology. I like the program because I like talking to people. I want to get them on the phone to talk about, how can I help you? People want to share that information, and also understanding that emails, #1 form of communication, phone calls, maybe not quite #2, but high on the list. So always trying to connect with people, because I remember that in spite of our modern technology, companies don't run companies. People run companies. Companies don't connect with each other. People connect with each other. So it's just a matter of making that connection. But when you use an email platform, a HubSpot, a Constant Contact, that does give you great information, because you know who's taken action, and it is understanding the conversion of a cold contact to a warm contact. If they open the email, if they opened your a link on that email, you're seeing that they must have some interest if they went that far to do a couple of clicks. Those are the ones that you want to focus on. Those are the ones you want to keep in your callback cycle, because you know that they have some interest. And if you have a specific link on your correspondence, you'll know they had specific interest in that. And when you then share relevant content with them on a follow-up email, you're building that relationship with them to engage them some more. So there's a real connection there that can be used to help to grow that from a cold call to a warm call to, we'll say, the no call.
That's a good point. The human interaction is definitely important. One question that came in is, the role of texting. Does texting play a role in this whole contact method? And what are your best thoughts on that? Is it just a reply back to a text, or is it the opportunity to actually hit, instead of text, hit the phone and try to speak with the person?
Another great question, another great technology question, because there's a lot of debate right now that texting might become the #2 most used form of communication, in addition to instant messaging, phone calls, voicemail, emails. We have so many communication channels now. How do we manage through all of that? I'm going to leave that as a judgment call, because I work with the same thing. If someone texts you, and if you leave a cell phone number, or in your correspondence, you put in, feel free to email me or text me. And that can open up the opportunity, because some people just prefer texting. And if you get a text, there's a really good chance that they're sitting at their cell phone. For me, I'd give them a quick phone call. Hey, I just got your text. I thought I'd give you a phone call instead. It's a great way to know that they are now engaged in that media. So that's one view that you can take on it. We do like to text, and it can be an effective means, but I still believe that at some point, the phone call becomes very important. And I'll give you another channel, video chat. Now, we're doing that somewhat today, because it puts the voice communication with a video presentation and a connection, because we're human beings after all. We like to be connected. We're social creatures. Why would we want to take something out of that equation? And that's where that voice communication can play in well, because of the tone of your voice. Information indicates that the tone of your voice can send more meaning in your message than just the words that you speak alone. So bottom line, pick the methods that you're comfortable with, incorporate them, build it into the system, and just execute it through the system in a way that works for you.
Dean, everybody likes to hear about some real life examples. Do you have some examples to share of some successes with your system?
Yeah, I can share a few. I don't talk a whole heck of a lot about it, but just to give you an idea, I developed this system, oh boy, 3 years or so ago, and I was tasked with the challenge of developing new business in a multi-state territory from scratch. No customers at all, zero. That was a treat. So I built the database. I used other resources. I used the client, the employer database as much as I could. And I built a database of 250 contacts. In the course of 1 year, I identified 25 contacts. We got 25 quotes that was valued at $25 million. That was a lot of work. There are a lot of days when you make a lot of phone calls and you don't talk to anybody. That's where running the system becomes important, because there will be the day when you when someone picks up the phone and you have a chance to talk to them. And what happens is you hit on one of those that are in the 4%, or you hit on one of those that's in the 40%. They listen to what they need. One of the things that drives a buying decision is not only need, but urgent need, or if a company's having a problem, they got a supply issue and they need a solution. If they sense that you can be a solution, they're going to talk to you and get an opportunity to quote. That particular opportunity I've had was $1.5 million on one. I had a $10 million deal. This whole nother marketplace, all high volume industrial stuff, the kind of companies that buy these kind of volumes. But this, regardless of the size, regardless of the product, regardless of whether it's a service, it's your database of customers that you've done business with. It's the idea that you need or are working towards getting new revenue. Now you can fire up your website, you can fire up your SEO optimization, your marketing automation, you can do all that, which is all important things to do, but it takes some time. The fastest way to get new business is to call people that used to buy from you before. And that's what we were trying to do. and get them engaged and hope that you can provide a better service than what they've been getting and or solve a problem and or present a solution.
I think that kind of wraps it up today. I was seeing if any last minute questions came in here, and I don't see any. So, Dean, you've always been a great partner with the Rockford Area Economic Development Council. You've been a great advocate for manufacturing in our region, and I want to deeply thank you for the great presentation this morning. And thank you, audience. Thank you, audience, for joining us today. Please remember to check RADEC's website at www.rockfordil.com for business resources and upcoming webinars and events. Have a great afternoon, everyone.